Beer is an incredibly versatile drink and a lot easier to make at home than wine or whiskey. Joining me now are Erica Shea and Stephen Valand, the co-owners and founders of Brooklyn Brew Shop and the authors of a book called Beer Making Book, 52 Seasonal Recipes for Small Batches. It is published by Clarkson Potter. What kinds of things do you like to add to your beer when you're making it for yourselves?
I actually didn't like beer before we started making it, which is an odd way to get into a hobby and then a business. But when we started, it was amazing that it worked, and it was beer, and it was delicious and carbonated and really impressed your friends. And so we started experimenting with flavors that we loved in food. And so we would add chestnuts to a brown ale to make it even nuttier, add sage to beers. And so we really got inspired by restaurants, by dishes we had, by the green market, and wandering through spice stores and seeing what we could add in.
Well, beer is prehistoric, isn't it? And have people been doing this sort of thing since the beginning?
Yeah, it has a very long history. It's just funny because people don't realize that the weirdest beer that you can conceive of has probably been made by someone throughout the course of history. There are chicken beers that are used, just like chicken soup. If you have a cold, someone might make you a chicken beer. People think that we make really weird beers, or that a lot of breweries in America are just starting to make really strange things, but they don't realize that beer has a long history.
One of the things you emphasize in your book is sanitation. You write, if you do not sanitize, you will not make beer. What kinds of things can go wrong if you don't clean your materials properly?
Wild yeast, which actually, if you like sour beers, can be fantastic. But
yeast goes into beer, doesn't it?
Yeast does go into beer, and there's yeast all in the air. And cultivated ale and lager yeast are great for beer, and they do exactly what they're supposed to do. So they ferment and leave some residual sugars, where wild yeast are wild, and they can break down things that we normally like in our beer. And so they make beer a lot more sour, which done properly is phenomenal, but done accidentally can be shocking.
It's surprising how much is floating around in the air. There's yeast everywhere. One of our early customers took a packet of yeast and ran around his apartment with it, and then he brewed a year later using the yeast that's just been floating around in his apartment, and it was a really good beer. But
because the yeast continues to propagate.
Yeah, it can basically breed endlessly. It's an amazing creature.
A lot of brewing books try and scare you away, or just be super, super exact and scientific, but we like to look at it more like cooking. So if something is too hot, just move it off the burner, add some water, get it back in the temperature range.
How important is the type of water that you use? In New York, we're very proud of our water, and we used to have a lot of local breweries, Schaefer, Rheingold, Ballantine, Peels, Rupert's. Does New York City tap water have any characteristics that lend themselves to a particular kind of beer or making good beer?
You want good water. So if you like the water you drink, and in New York we really do love the water we drink, so it's great for brewing. There's
heavy water be a problem?
If you definitely
water with a lot of minerals.
Would be.
If you want to recreate a specific German or Czech style, you'll have to worry about water chemistry and add tablets of various things. Unless you're going after that very specific flavor, you don't necessarily need to worry about water chemistry. It's something that can really scare people in the beginning.
We boil everything again?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah. That's our favorite part. That's where you get to have the most fun. You add in hops, which add bitterness, but also aroma and flavor. And that's where you can add in spices, different sugars. We pretty much look at it like how you would make a soup. And so stronger flavors like cinnamon, things that would hold up, can go in the beginning, where fresh herbs, we do some flower beers in the book, and those you want to add in right at the very end.